we talk about this stuff so much, and there's such a culture on the internet of people who make fun of boomers or older adults who don't seem to get it, don't seem to understand that they're being rude, or don't seem to understand why their kids don't want to talk to them, or
Hmm.
a plethora of things that they don't seem to understand. And
Yeah.
it's a running joke in our society now, and everyone's making fun of these people. Nobody's actually trying to help these people
Hmm.
to have a better life and potentially reunite with their children.
Yeah.
Children like us, 29 and 26-year-olds,
Yeah.
who desperately want to have family.
Hmm.
But we need certain things from that family in order to load up our car and drive, 10, 12 hours to go spend a week with them,
Hmm.
because it's hard. It's hard for us right now.
Yeah.
And so a mission that we have moving forward is we're going to make podcasts directly speaking to people who are maybe estranged from their children or would
Hmm.
like a better relationship with their children. And we're going to try to focus on topics that can help educate them and teach them maybe a few of the things that they need to start incorporating into their daily habits or thought process that will get them closer to their children rather than far away.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, what is like a main thing that you've experienced? Not the most important thing, but maybe a main thing, an important topic that you've noticed with your parents, something that they could do differently that would help you to have a closer relationship with them.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say, off the back of a conversation I actually had today with my family, that kind of reminds me of a pattern that I see a lot. So it could be a main thing here is guilt tripping. That I had a conversation today with my mom.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah,
Like, just give me a quick definition of what guilt tripping is.
I would say that it's making somebody feel guilty for a choice that they're making, or how they're living their life or what they're doing. And you're emotionally maybe manipulating them or complaining or acting sad
Hmm.
and trying to inflict the feeling of guilt on them.
Okay, so trying to make somebody feel guilty for something that maybe they should feel guilty for, or maybe they shouldn't feel guilty for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes it's both. I think that, sometimes you can sometimes you're guilt tripping somebody over something that maybe maybe subjectively or objectively they should feel guilty for, but at the end of the day, should you still be guilt tripping them?
Mhm.
Maybe not, you know.
Okay, so I interrupted you. You had a conversation with your mom,
Mm.
and what happened?
Yeah, so I was talking to my mom, and currently my mother wants to see us. As you know, it's been probably 6 months since we've seen my family, and
Mhm.
a lot has gone on. You've switched jobs.
I got laid off
You
and had
got
to
laid off.
grind to get another
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Yeah.
You got laid off. You got a new job. And we had our son this year, and there's been a few health things that we've dealt with, and
We've got a lot going on.
there's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
And then we just had the trip with your family that we had planned. So it has been since the new year since we've seen my mom and my dad, and they're upset about that.
Well,
And
we don't want to forget that they also live like 12 hours away from us too,
mhm,
right? So it's not like
yeah,
we haven't seen them because they live up the block and we've
yeah,
just avoided them at all costs.
yeah. But they would like to see us more. They would like to come to our house on a more frequent schedule, like every 2 to 3 months. They would like to, be here. But I mean, we don't really have much space for them to stay here. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, or you could say excuses, but at the end of the day, the guilt tripping is where I become distant in the relationship and where I feel uncomfortable in the relationship, because I would like for my family to treat me as if I have good intentions
Mhm.
for them and everybody. I want them to see me. I want them to see their family, and I want to see them. But also, things have to be at the right time, and guilt tripping me over it isn't helpful. So,
So what are some phrases or terms that you hear, or maybe not in your specific situation, but some phrases that you've heard other people say
mhm,
that those phrases kind of indicate that guilt tripping is happening.
Right. So today, when I called my mom, my aunt was primarily guilt tripping me on behalf of my mother because they're visiting with my aunt right now. And she was, almost immediately, telling me, your mother misses you so much and wants to see your son, and you know that he's changing all
Mhm.
the time. And basically trying to make me feel bad that I'm not allowing my mom to experience every change that he's having.
Well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
That he changes every single day. I feel like I noticed something new about him.
Hmm.
He's a little bit over 1 year old now.
Yeah.
Memorial Day, he was taking his first steps, and then soon after, he was walking 20, 40, 50 steps. You'd
Yeah.
have to visit once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to do if you live 12 hours away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So there's that. Other phrases I would say that's hard, but there's just a lot of conversation whenever we do FaceTime or call, it's just generally brought up that they really miss us and that they're not, maybe doing that much and
Hmm.
with their own
Just like
lives.
subtle little hints that,
Yeah.
things could be different. I guess
Yeah.
like we could be in your space, in your
Yeah.
house
And she
instead of
told
here.
me, yeah, she told me today, when I was just mentioning that it was hard for me to get back on getting the house clean and getting back into my routine, she's like, well, if I was there, I would be able to help you with that and I'd be able to do it. And it's like, but that's not necessarily what I would like for her to do. That's not necessarily what I would need. I understand a mother's intention behind saying that, but she doesn't often hear me when I say that's not necessarily what I need from you,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of continues to push on that same button that they must be here and that they would, help so much and that's just what they should be
Well,
doing.
your mom hates cleaning, though. Like
Hmm.
she grew up, she wouldn't cook a ton of meals, or if she did cook
Well,
meals,
she
she would
doesn't.
cook them with
Yeah,
like
she doesn't like
plastics, and
cooking a lot. Yeah.
she doesn't like cooking because she doesn't want to clean up afterwards,
Yeah.
and just doesn't like the process of cooking in
Yeah.
general. And now that you're an adult, you live a totally different lifestyle where we cook all the time. Our
Yeah.
kitchen is almost never clean because we're rotating through pots and pans and various dishes, and we're exploring learning how to cook properly for health reasons and
Yeah.
all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
And so why would you ever feel comfortable knowing somebody that doesn't like to clean
Hmm.
or cook wants to come into your situation so badly and do those exact things that you were denied as a child?
Well, she also, I mean, yeah, no, and I agree with that. But I mean, and then she was also just saying that she can watch my son while I do those things,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, either way, like, I think that you can sound nitpicky in these types of conversations, but I think it's the constant bombardment with, you know, I must be there to help you. You seem like you're struggling, kind of almost not just being supportive
Yeah.
towards me, but making me feel or trying to make me feel like I'm not firing at all cylinders without her,
Well,
and that we would all be doing so much better when, like you said, we
mhm.
do live actually very different lives than how they do, and we're going to raise our child very differently than how they raised
Mhm.
me. So it's just, I want them to be involved and be able to see what we're doing, but I don't want them to try to lead the way with that. And it feels like, that's a big part of kind of what they want. They want to have a say in their hand in the situation.
So it seems like part of the guilt trip is that when you say no to something, that's like, for example, you said no to them coming to our house, mainly because we had another trip planned with my family,
Hmm.
and it had just been a short amount of time since they'd been here last, and we
Hmm.
just weren't ready. You
And your
didn't personally
jobs
say
and
no.
stuff.
I had personal things going on,
Yeah.
and we just weren't ready to have more people. And we, as a couple, said no to them.
Hmm.
And now, ever since that point, we've said no. There has been constant sadness and
Hmm.
constant just kind of twisting at you a little bit
Yeah.
for making that decision. I think this is a good point to stop and give a little bit of an education point. When we say guilt tripping, we're saying that you're using your emotions in your speech to cause somebody else to try to feel roughly the same as you feel. So make you feel guilty, make you feel sad because I feel guilty and I feel sad. Or maybe not I feel guilty, but I feel sad and I feel disturbed. So now I'm going to try to make you feel a type of way.
So you'll understand how I feel or something.
Exactly. I think that it's important to note at this point that that is not the way to behave.
Yeah.
After your child has, told you something that they already didn't want to necessarily have to hurt your feelings in that way. Yeah. But now you're just highlighting it over and over.
And whenever I did tell my parents that they couldn't come when they were wanting to a few months back, their response was so dramatic that it forced me to give up so much more information about our lives. So it's like, yeah, but you don't understand, like, this is what's been happening and this. And then it got into a point where I'm like, what if me and Daniel were having really bad relationship issues? Or what if there was infidelity or something, and it wasn't a good time? Do I have to tell you that?
Yeah.
And
then they're going to add to your frustration.
Yeah, like I don't want, like, maybe I don't want to say that. Maybe I don't want to come out with that. Maybe this is just not a good time. But because of the guilt tripping, it felt like I had to over explain myself. And it just made me feel really down and bad about myself. And I actually had a conversation with my aunt around that same time. And she admitted that that's something her parents did to her whole entire life. It was constantly, when are you going to come home to us? When are you going to come down? You need to come. And they never had the same life as her. They never worked the same type of job that she worked. And they could never, it would be impossible for them to wrap their heads around how stressful her life was and how different it was from theirs. But they didn't care to, it was just like, why are you not coming back? Mm-hmm. And, I just feel like that's kind of a very common thing, is it's, unfortunately, you're making it too much about yourself. And what you said earlier, it's like they want you to feel what they're feeling, but it's like, I understand what you're feeling. Like, I've also felt that way, like within my life, about people and things, when, maybe a relationship or something, like, and I know I'm going to feel probably sad one day with my own children, maybe not wanting me to come into the delivery room or something when they're having a baby. Like, I understand that these things can be upsetting, mm-hmm. but you don't have to try to make me feel that way, because it just pushes me further away. It doesn't strengthen our relationship.
Yeah, I think this is another spot for a great lesson, something that I feel like a lot of older people who are trying to reunite and build stronger bonds with kids our age, mm-hmm. 20-year-olds to people in their 20s,
30s,
closing in on 30s. If I say something that makes you upset, mm-hmm. you have a right to be frustrated. Mm-hmm. But if you really want to build a strong relationship with that child of yours, that is the exact moment to rise to the occasion. That is the exact moment to say, instead of complaining or guilt tripping or trying to make you feel sad because I'm sad, mm-hmm. that is the moment to go, hey, well, I'm here for you when you need me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to mess with you anymore about it. I know you've got a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Just know that I love you. I want to spend time with you. And when the time comes, I'll be there.
Yeah.
That's all that needs to be said.
And that would feel like such a weight off of, like, for example, when I told my parents that they couldn't come at that time, my mom's immediate response was actually, over the phone, she walked away, and my dad had to tell me, hey, your mom is actually too upset to talk right now. Mm-hmm. And she's not, she just needs space. She needs time. This is so upsetting to her. She can't talk to you right now. And so that was something that made me feel horrible. And it took a few days for us to actually talk. But yeah, if I were to have received the message from both of them united that, hey, it's okay, you don't have to give us a list of reasons. Like, if this isn't a good time, we understand. Yeah, it is upsetting, and we really, really want to see you and our grandson, but let's just do it when we can. And I think me and you would have just walked away from that and been like, so refreshed and like genuinely trying to come up with a time to see them sooner, than if we felt like there was such a big heavy thing that was dropped on us right after.
Well, now look at what happens. Now we have to go into the next situation knowing somebody has been mad for 6 months. So now when we plan our next trip, I'm like, I don't really know if I want to load up my 2 dogs, load up my baby, load up you into a car and grind on the highway for 12 hours to get down here to somebody who's been upset at me for the last 6 months and blamed me for losing my job and just having a lot on my shoulders and trying to, keep my head above water in this world that we're living in.
Yeah. And then right when we leave, start the guilt trip process again.
Yes.
About when are y'all coming back again? It's been so long. So like when again? And it's like, once again, we get it. I mean, we are going to want to see our kids when our kids get older. That's just something that everybody desires. It's just like, how are you going to go about it without making your children feel really uncomfortable and hurt? And I mean, it's hurtful for me, but it's also just like uncomfortable. And I'm like, why are you doing this? It doesn't seem fair or productive. And our whole relationship is just at a standstill because it feels like every conversation, there's just major emphasis on, I miss you, want to see you again. Yeah. Hopefully this will change one day, maybe some blaming thrown your way, maybe he'll come around eventually and not be as, distant, or he'll allow for us to come more frequently and kind of put a divide, try to put a divide there.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like your whole relationship is now sandwiched in guilt because there's the guilt before. Yeah. Even a little bit of guilt while you're there, and then the guilt after when it's time to leave. And you know what?
You feel guilt when you're there because now you're like, you feel like you have to like give your kid as an offering and like be like, here you go, like here he is, like, we're here for only a few days. And there's just like so much pressure and like, I'm gonna feel like we need to spend, perfect time with them and have the perfect time. But yeah, you're saying something.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say is that as we just found out, there's only so much voice and words that can fit into a small amount of time, right? So you can talk and I can talk and we can talk over each other, and that doesn't work. Or I can choose to sit here and talk to you about guilt, and I can sit here and talk to you about whatever I want to talk to you about, and that stops us from building a deeper relationship. Yeah. So if I'm your parent and I decide that I'm sad and I want to make you sad and I want to say little comments, well, there's a trade-off. That I can, if I'm saying one thing, then I'm missing the opportunity to tell you, it's an opportunity cost. I'm missing the opportunity to tell you something that I learned recently, or I'm missing the opportunity to ask you something interesting that's happened about you, or something that's changed in your life. And so as an older person who wants to build a better relationship with your kid, you have to look at the hours that you have with your kid every single year. If you're a low contact parent and you're trying to build a better relationship with this kid, you're probably getting maybe 20, 30 hours a year. Yeah. If you get a couple days, and if you subtract meals and, just the silence of everyday driving a car and whatever, focusing on things, you only have a few conversations to get your point across. And the point that you should be trying to get across is not that you've hurt me and I need you to understand how hurt I am. Yeah. The point that you should be trying to get across is I love you and I want to find out more about you. And I want you to know more about me. And I want us to grow together moving forward.
And your goal is to leave a taste in their mouth of, I want more. We should talk more. Hey, this was a great conversation. We should start chatting more. And then next time, that maybe that child is free, they might give you a call because they have had such good conversations with you. I mean, that seems like such a basic thing, but within these relationships, it just, I guess just that parent-child dynamic makes it really hard for these parents to not see their goal clearly, that if their goal is to spend more time with their child and be closer with their child, then that literally just requires getting to know their child and having good conversations and having good fun, and not guilt tripping their child into spending more time with them.
But the weird thing about the situation is if you approach it the right way, I will start to develop some guilt. as
Mhm.
somebody who's been low or no contact.
Yeah.
For instance, I just found out my mom, who I've been low contact with simply because of, reasons that we've talked about before
Yeah.
on this channel. Um, I've been low contact with her,
Mhm.
and recently I found out that she does a garden in her backyard.
Mhm.
And we just started a garden in our backyard.
Right.
And I was finding that out, and I started to feel a little bit of guilt in me because I was like, how did I not know this about her?
Mhm.
You know? And partially it's because every single time I talk to her, she wants to talk about my dad who
Mhm.
abused her instead of talking to me about what's going on in her life and
Mhm.
asking me about what's going on in my life. Turns
Yeah.
out we were building a garden at the same time, and we could have talked about that.
Yeah.
I recently talked to my grandma for the first time in 2 decades. She gardens every year.
Yeah.
She's growing the same things that we're growing in our garden.
Yeah.
And that put some guilt into me. I was like, oh, how do I not know this? I wish I had reached out to her
Yeah.
sooner. I've just had such a great conversation with this person.
Mhm.
Why didn't I reach out sooner? Now, if when I had called her, when she picked up the phone, if she would have said,
Mhm.
why haven't you talked to me? You were supposed to call, you're always supposed to call your grandmother. I would have been like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa. I would have had an allergic reaction to the whole situation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, whenever I talk to my parents and if they're ever doing anything interesting or good, my dad recently said he was painting and showed me his paintings, and it was just like an actual moment of like, oh, cool, let me see. I actually
Hmm.
want to see. Like, so you've really been sitting in the sunroom painting? Like, are
Hmm.
you serious? Normally y'all just do the same thing on repeat and tell me about that tomorrow's trash day or something. And
Hmm.
then, we have some conversation about how you miss me. And the point is like, if they were to focus on living their own lives and pouring into themselves and being happy and sharing that happiness and joy over the phone, if you're having a phone conversation, it really, it gets exciting. And like you said, you're actually like, oh, I want to talk to them more. I feel bad for not hearing enough of this before. I mean, it just works like a charm compared to, you know, a very dull conversation that once again just results in making you feel bad for not reaching out enough or for not doing enough.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think we've shared a bunch of good points
yeah.
during this conversation. If you are guilt tripping your child, this is probably something that you should stop. And if you didn't know what guilt tripping was at the start of this conversation, I hope you do now. I
Mm-hmm.
hope that you have a better sense of what it is and the types of phrases and behaviors and things that make your child feel like they're being guilt tripped.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always ask in the comments, share if you have some shared experience to
Mm-hmm.
what we're talking about. You can always put it in the comments. We'll get
Yeah.
back to you as quickly as we can and let you know our perspective on it. And
Yeah.
we can be totally wrong. We're not 100% right, but what we do know for 100% is that we actually want people to have better relationships because that's what's important in life.
Yeah, I mean, I love comment sections, and I think that whether you're a child that has parents that guilt trip them or family member, I would love to hear that story and experience. And I think it's will be helpful for people to read those as well.
Mhm.
And or if you're a parent that maybe there's a red flag going off, like maybe I am doing that, giving an example of how you're maybe doing that or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to read those types of comments. I'd love for those comments to be left for others and to kind of have a conversation about that. And we'll definitely be either touching on it on other videos or replying to comments. So
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it was nice talking to you.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing this conversation with me
Hmm.
over a cup of tea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.